Hey everybody, this is Perch. This may be a little bit of a sloppy video, but it is what it is, so why not? I'd like how sloppy is kind of code for bin drinking, but that's okay. So, look, I think there's some undeniable facts about comics, and let me take a step backward and say, having run a comic shop for many years, an undeniable fact is that a lot of people who buy comics, the fans, the readers, they're obnoxious. I mean, if you've been in one of those arguments over who's stronger, Thor or the Hulk, or Captain America or Batman or Superman or Silver Surfer, whatever it happens to be, there's not a right answer. The reality is, and nobody wants to face it, is that a writer, a comic writer, can pretty much pick whatever the F they want. And that's what you get. By the way, as this video goes on, the swearing will go from mildly censored to completely not caring. So just heads up if you got kids in the car or wherever you are. So, the reality is the writer of the comic can pretty much do what they want to make any comic whatever they want. So trying to kind of assess or determine like who is truly the stronger of them all, or what these, there's not a right answer. There's just not. We can pretend there's a right answer, but there's, as long as a writer is free to basically create the matchups or whatever it is however they want, all bets are off. That's just how comics are. They are, the outcome of battles, the outcome of what makes a good comic or a bad comic is largely subjective. Now, there's a few differences to that. Like, for example, I often point out the Matt Rosenberg final issue of Uncanny X-Men that he did before Jonathan Hickman took over. It switched artists in the middle of the comic, pretty randomly in the middle of the comic, and the art switch was not subtle. It was jarring. And so in this instance, it looked weird. It was weird. And you could look at that, and I think it's not subjective to say that the vast majority of people, 99.9% of the people, would prefer for the comic art to remain consistent through the entire book and not randomly just change it around. That's a pretty, that's not a controversial statement. It's not a, it's a matter of opinion. Some people like that, some people don't. No. It would be like if you published a comic and then in the middle of the comic, the person doing the lettering just switched to Spanish because screw it. Why not? That would be objectively bad. That's not subjective. That's not like, some people like the language of the comic to just shift every now and then. No, that people would hate that. So I think that, and by the way, we're in this current state in comics where people don't want to give a definitive opinion. No, but some people might like that, and other people might. We can't say if anything is good or bad because something might be for everyone. No, actually no. If 95% of the people say they hate it, then it's not something for everyone because fuck those 5 people, that 5% of people, whatever. See, there you go. I told you the language was shifting. But generally speaking, writing style is subjective. Some people like Mark Waid. Some people like Dan Slott. Some people like Tom King. Some people like Brian Michael Bendis. Some people like none of those. And the answer is, there is no one right answer for everyone, but there is a right answer for you. And the fastest path to happiness is to figure out what you like and then do that. If you like Tom King, buy Tom King. And if a bunch of people are saying that they hate Tom King, he's the worst writer in the history of all the writers, screw those people, because who cares? That's the secret to a happy life, is just find out what you like and do it. And none of the rest matters. I think we can drive ourselves crazy, and some people do drive themselves crazy, by trying to identify this writer is the good writer, and this writer is the bad writer, and there you have it. So when I do these videos, by the way, the reason why this is relevant is I have my own tastes and opinions on things. I've given them before. There's definitely comics I like. There's definitely comics I don't like. It's not a consistent story. I like Jeff Thorne. I think he's a good writer. I like his cosmic stuff. I understand other people do not like Jeff Thorne. It's fine. You're welcome to like whatever you like. Just don't make up facts about it. I did the video about I don't know, whatever it was, like, there wasn't that much Joe Mullen. People are like, no, there was tons of Joe Mullen. I counted the pages. Like, no, you did not. Green Lantern #1, pick it up, count it. How many pages of Joe Mullen are in Green Lantern #1? I suggest you do that experiment. #1 of Jeff Thorne. How many Joe Mullen appearances are there in Green Lantern #1? I'm not going to spoil it for you. Go look up for yourself. But if you are saying like half the comic was Joe Mullen in Green Lantern #1, you are wrong. Flat wrong. Very wrong. But go look at the comic. See for yourself. Anyway, the point is, I like certain things. You like certain things. It does not bother me if you like something I don't like, or if you don't like something I do like. I said this before, and I mean it. It slightly horrifies me. It really does. If people go, well, I like this because Perch like this. That I'm not ready for that level of responsibility. Look, I'm a parent. I'm holding down a high price job and all the rest. I'm not ready for the responsibility of you outsourcing what you like or don't like to me. Please don't. Go make your own opinion. Nothing would make me happier. I don't want it. A lot of YouTubers do. They come on and they speak with great authority. Al Ewing is a bastard, and screw that guy, and he's bad on Twitter, and he's mean, and he blocks people, and his comics aren't that good anyway. They're full of SJW woke tropes, and we should all hate him. But that's not me. That's another channel you're looking for. Amber Heard, I could care less. Good, bad, I don't think Amber Heard's a good actress. If you like Amber Heard, more power to you. There are whole channels that have built their fame and fortune around Amber Heard. That's baffling to me because she's as interesting as wallpaper, as like beige, slightly patterned wallpaper. I can't even pretend to get any interest or emotion about Amber Heard. Either way, her screen performances are like I don't even want to see her in porn because I think it'd be very boring. I'm just pointing that out. Anyway, nothing. I'm sure that's a very sexist thing to say. So anyway, there's a mail I got. There's a reader mail in all this, or a viewer reader. I'm always going to reader. I'm a comic guy, true and true. That's what it is. A viewer mail. And I'm going to read it to you. And I'm not going to read all of it because there's some stuff here that's personal. But let me read it to you. It says, my advice, okay, here comes the mail. My advice is to do a serious point-by-point video about why their comics don't work for you. And they're talking about is Vita Ayala. My advice is to do a serious point-by-point video about why Vita Ayala comics don't work for you. It won't be fun, that's true, and it shouldn't be necessary. It's not, but, and this is where I will stop, with the mail. But basically, the premise, the rest of the sentences, which is more personal, it's that, hey, the premise is, hey, there's a bunch of people on YouTube who relentlessly shit on Vita Ayala. And I've said in videos, I don't have an issue with Vita Ayala in the same way a lot of these other people do. So, I should do a point by point about why I don't like Vitas. So the key point to this mail, by the way, is it shouldn't be necessary. It shouldn't, and it's not. Look, there's some people out there who like Vita's work. There's some people who do not. I don't care for... so what's interesting is Vita Ayala did a Wonder Woman comic, a short story. And I thought it was good. And the reason I thought it was good, not great, but good, is that it was kind of taking a different tone to things. It felt like it was a little bit introspective to the character. There was a decent handle on capturing a different aspect of Wonder Woman. In this case, it was around kind of the balance between being a protector and a warrior. And I thought Vita handled that quite well. I thought that the balance was good. I appreciated kind of the inner dialogue that was going on through the comic, and I felt like it was representing this contradiction of the character. The contradiction being, I'm supposed to attack and I'm supposed to defend. I love the world, and also I was born through viciousness. I liked how Vita handled that complexity of the character. I thought it was done quite well. So that was one of Vita's big two pieces of work, and I thought, pretty good. Interested to see this carry out. Since that time, My belief of Vita's work, as I looked at New Mutants, I've looked at a lot of the anthologies. I mean, the anthologies are almost hard to judge because they're short stories. Now, granted, I did like that Wonder Woman one. They're short stories that don't really give much meaning to anything. They're like 3 to 4 pages, and they're meant to almost. It's like junk food. It stereotypes a moment in time. It doesn't really go into anything. It doesn't provide depth to the character. And in a lot of cases, these stories feel like opportunities to have quote unquote downtime. The characters get to, the trope is have lunch, get together, talk about kind of silly, like, isn't it boring beating up all these criminals? Why do they even do that? I don't know. Gosh, it's just the stuff is very, very trope. And I think that the challenge I've had with Vita's work more recently is a lot of the stuff. There's nothing particularly original or unique about it, and the characterization. It's a little bit the same complaint I have about Bendis's work. Is that you could almost switch the word bubbles around, and it's all the same. The Children of the Atom book. It was a lot of kind of angsty dialogue, but none of it felt like it resonated with the characters. The characters didn't feel unique. You could actually switch around the dialogue randomly, and the story would read about the same. There was no growth of the character. And in many ways, I think that this is almost the opposite of what I liked about Vita's initial work, which was tackling a very, complex set of paradoxes. In this case, it was Wonder Woman, in a reasonable, kind of challenging way. Basically, so if you take the Children of the Atom, why are all of the characters having kind of the same angsty problem? The problem is all about kind of validation, fear of acceptance, unrequited love in some cases, or at least unrequited feelings. And this whole dynamic between the characters, the big surprise in Children of the Atom was that, hey, they're pretending to be mutants, but actually, as it turns out, one of the characters pretending to be a mutant is a mutant. And this is going to cause an interesting dynamic with the characters, and there's a little bit of, feelings that are tied up and all that. But the problem is, every character was kind of the same single character. There was no individuality. And I think the most powerful thing a writer can do is really lean into the individuality or the uniqueness of the characters. That, to me, is what creates a really interesting story, that we're not just seeing kind of a moral or a message play out, but we're actually seeing complexity between the characters. This is hard work, by the way. It takes a very skilled writer to do this, and a lot of people don't. It is, how do we take each character, positives, negatives, flaws, and assets, and you actually shape them in such a way that they can bounce into each other in a messy, chaotic way. And I think the challenge that I have with Vita's work, in particular, the more recent stuff, is that it doesn't provide any of that depth. It doesn't provide any of that complexity. You don't have characters who interact with each other. You take New Mutants. The complexity of what could be a good plot. Hey, there's some more impressionable youth characters are trying to find their way on Krakoa. They're trying to understand where they fit in this grand scheme of adults, and people have saved the world a million times over, but now, they've achieved some level of paradise. We got these younger characters coming in who, do not have all of that experience, and thus they don't have some of the grounding, some of the platform in order to build and grow themselves, and they're tempted by the Shadow King and to do, maybe evil things they don't have. So they're coming at it from a different angle than the X-Men or the New Mutants have had in the past. And yet there's this dynamic of trust and, the fears of, like, I'm a clone, I'm a clone of a mutant, I'm a regular mutant. How are we supposed to interact with each other? What does this all mean in a world where we can be resurrected? What meaning does life have? But it gets whitewashed, for lack of a better word. It's just there's a generic nature to these characters where nobody can truly evolve, nobody can advance, and so the characters are just kind of going through the motions. And there's this overuse of characters kind of offending each other, and they need to apologize for their offenses, and, like, I need to validate you, and I need to apologize for why I didn't validate you, and no, you did validate me enough, and I need to apologize for not responding to your validation. There's this whole messy complexity to how these characters all interact that is exhausting. Sorry, it's not exhausting. That's actually the problem. I said that wrong. It's not exhausting because you do not have enough emotion or investment in any of the situations that are going on in this comic to even get exhausted. It doesn't matter. It's reading something that you know isn't going anywhere, and that's the challenge. It's like a character study, but we haven't even fleshed out the characters enough to where they matter. And that's the problem. Do I believe? I believe, and I'm still holding out hope, and I don't give a shit if anybody in the comments wants to call me an idiot for it or not. But when that first story, that Wonder Woman story, granted is a shorter one, that Vita put together, it really tackled the depth of the duality of the kind of the conflicting natures of the character. And I think that was a smart take. This isn't the best comic of all time, but it introduced some complexity. And I feel like, I don't know what happened in kind of the career or the arc, or I have no idea what went on, but that nuanced, clever take vanished in the more recent work. So that's my issue with Vita. And it's not an issue with Vita. It's the writing. I'm sure Vita has a look. I mean, a lot of the videos, a lot of people who complain about Vita complain about various Twitter threads. Vita saying we need to hire a black or brown person to take this job. The kind of the complexity around non-binary and pronouns and all that other stuff. And look, the way I view it, and I understand a lot of you don't view it this way, and that's fine. You're welcome to your own opinion. I'm not trying to change that. Like I said, I'd be horrified if I did, legitimately. I would be a terrible reviewer because I don't want to give you an opinion. My deepest desire is for you to go out and get an opinion of your own. That's me. I think that, I mean, look, I don't care that Vita is non-binary. You know, Vita stated that they want their pronouns to be they, their. It's plural, so I have a hell of a time accomplishing that, but I give it my best shot. Because I don't care what Vita wants to be called, I don't care. It's Vita's business, and it's fine. I don't care that Vita is brown. I think that's an absurd reason to care about anything. I think the Twitter antics are immature and self-destructive. But again, it's Vita's party. If they want to portray themselves that way, that's be my guest. I think all the only person that hurts over time is Vita. It's easy for me to block and ignore. If Vita blocked me, I block Vita. That's what I do to everybody who blocks me. It's because too many people have blocked me and then like talk shit about me behind the wall. So it's like if I've run a bot at this point. You block me, I block you back. The end. And then we're both happy. We're both living in our own little worlds. But all that kind of stuff to me is somewhat irrelevant. Vita can conduct Vita's life however Vita wants to. I don't have any emotion around that. It's fine. In terms of the comic, to the viewer who messaged in, those are the reasons why I struggle. Those are the reasons why I don't find those comics to be great, and why I don't look, when a new comic is announced to Vita, I now look at it with pessimism. But there is a small spark in me that hopes that we can get back to that nuanced, more complex take on characters, because that's what I strive for as a comic reader. That's what I want. It may never be coming back, or I may find it in a different writer, and that's great. But at the end of the day, do I want Vita to run out of comics? Of course not. If I don't want to if I don't want to inject myself with Vita's writing, then pretty easy for me not to buy it. It's very easy. I hope that Vita can find a career doing what Vita wants to do somewhere, whatever. And that could be in comics. Again, I'm under no obligation to buy it, so I don't feel any emotion behind it. And by the way, I guess the only emotion I would feel in all this is this. Most rational people, if Vita was listening to this right now, and given how people share things around, and they often do, good odds Vita is listening to this and has heard it, because I know Vita's listened to other things. Most rational people would hear this and go, some of that stuff might sting, But there's nothing personal in it. Nothing at all. Vita's lifestyle is Vita's business. I wish them well with it. See, there you go. I'm learning. I don't have any conspiracy theory that Marvel's trying to inject woke bisexual brown agendas into their readers. I don't feel that. And again, I know some of you do. I don't care. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's very easy to not, like even if that was the plot and the plan, it's a bad plan because I can easily avoid it. I just doesn't impact me. The thing that impacts me and the things that I hope for is I want comics to be written with complexity. I want these characters to be represented true to themselves, and I want to feel like things are going somewhere. I want to pick up a comic and feel good about the purchase. That's what I want. And that's not a high bar, or maybe it is. I could care less. Somebody could be the most whatever, and I point to I am a big fan of Rachel Pollack's Doom Patrol. It was weird. It was crazy. It was like David Lynch in comic book form. It was great. I love those comics. Several of you who are fans of this channel and like, say, the 90s, if you like Rob Liefeld, Youngblood, and Spawn and kind of that era, my guess is you won't like Rachel Pollack. So don't go and look those up because you're not going to enjoy yourself. If you like Michael Bay movies, you're probably not going to like David Lynch movies. They're two very different things. But I will tell you, I love Rachel Pollack. I love that craziness. I love that it just felt like those stories were deep. Every time you read them, you got a different feeling out of them. They're crazy. I love that. That's what I like. And I don't. Again, it's not for everybody. But to me, Rachel Pollack, transgender writer in the 90s, very early, somebody that I think definitely got screwed over by DC. Great writer. I would happily buy what Rachel Pollack's putting out. The personal aspects of the creative team, I don't give a shit about them. I truly don't. If they go on Twitter and they won't shut up about them, I may be annoyed, but I mute or ignore that person. To me, where the rubber meets the road is in the work. If the comic is good, if the writing is good, you can be an insufferable prick on whatever social media platform you want. For me, does it detract from it? It does, and I wish they wouldn't do it. But I can still block. I can still avoid. I can mute. I can do a lot of things. But if the writing is dull, then it's hard to do anything with that. Again, I don't care what your personal preferences are, but if the writing doesn't work, then I'm left with nothing. I can excuse bad behavior with good writing. I can't excuse bad writing because the core product is just not to my liking. But it is all subjective. Anyway, there you go. Thank you very much for listening. Longer video, but wanted to put that out there. Answer the reader question, and that's just how things go. If you find yourself angry by this or not understanding it, I'm sorry. I'm actually not sorry. Fuck off. But we all have personal preferences. We have to acknowledge that. That is who we are. And the closest point source of happiness is just to enjoy what we enjoy and let the rest alone. Thanks for listening.